All right. Thanks, Padmini. So what I wanted to do now is just to kind of show you some pretty pictures. I like pictures, and it's the middle of the afternoon, and we're about midway through. I actually might be a little ahead of schedule, but pictures are always fun because you can, really bring to life what this means. I was listening to the keynote this morning, and one of the interesting points that were made, and honestly, this isn't unique, and I'm sure that you've all heard this a gazillion times, is that the proverbial status report. You look at a status report, and he was talking about the sort of, status report is often a fantasy, and fantasy does not equal reality. And the reason that comparison is often made is because of, literally a group of people that are having to run around and gather information. Often that information it's time dependent. So you gather that information, you've got a couple of weeks to gather information, put together for a portfolio that's going to go under review, and it's going to be the quarterly review. And at the end of it all, it probably costs thousands of dollars to put that crazy report together. You put it on the desk, everybody's making really incredibly tough decisions about that data or about that information you presented. And you're going, oh man, I hope to heck that information is even accurate, because I really don't really believe it is, but it's the best we can do, and you're just praying for it. And that's just a reality of the way projects are often managed, especially technology projects, because it's different when you're not managing. And I notice a huge difference when I'm talking to customers who are dealing with manufacturing a product and producing a product, a tangible thing, versus software. Software is an interesting thing. It's kind of like you don't know how far you are along until you got nothing to show, and you're supposed to have something to demonstrate the incremental value you're delivering. It's an interesting thing. So one of the analogies we were using is how retail tracks buying history. That's not really what the message is on this use case, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that we use an example like this when it's so true. I mean, you browse a website, next thing you know, like my kids on Amazon, and I find it really funny, specifically about analyzing buying history, because since when am I interested in strawberry shortcake and My Little Pony? And it's my account. I mean, I don't understand that. And my kids, they just laugh at me and make fun of me because, they interpret that as that's my interest. Great. That's what they're for, I guess. But a lot of people don't realize that, when you're looking at this stuff, that there is a lot of analysis that goes on behind the scenes. And by and large, what I think is most valuable about the way you can use business analysis is the fact that you shouldn't be thinking about it as business intelligence or business analysis. You're thinking about it as it's ubiquitous. It's part of what I do. I have this dashboard that presents me information about things, and I can act on it. I can see in a heartbeat exactly what's going on, and I can have a guided way of looking at that information. I see something I want to get more information on, I drill down. And then once I'm there, I see it looks really interesting, might meet my needs, but I need to kind of, drill in and check the reviews. Always check the reviews. But it's the same kind of thing when you're looking at project-related information. So from that perspective, it's analogous to this kind of thing. From a project-related perspective, creating a way of presenting it in such a way that it's really easy to get to what you want. It's not about necessarily writing a report, but it's about providing an environment where it's really, really easy to create reports. And so, if you think about these little things on the side here, where you can filter, you can rank, you can sort, you can look for a brand or a criteria or a project type or whatever the case may be, that's essentially ad hoc reporting in a nutshell. It's just really making it easy, making it visual, making it simple to get to what you want to be able to do. Now, when it comes to tracking and thinking about portfolios, thinking about projects, thinking about ways of presenting certain types of reality, or what is the optimal scenario versus the non-optimal scenario, using charts and graphs to do this. Looking at risk, for example, looking at strategic alignment. What is our departmental objective for this fiscal year? Does that align with the state objectives for the fiscal year? And then basically thinking about that in terms of how you rank the priority or rank the worth of the projects that you're charged with. And using color, using ways to illustrate or make abundantly obvious, what needs to draw your attention. And again, I use that matrix example, or Excel columns, columns and columns of data. How do you make sense of all of that if you can't figure out, okay, what am I looking for? What to me indicates a problem or a condition I need to react to, okay? So here we get into some of the pictures that I like, because there's just a gazillion different ways you can illustrate and drive to the information that you want to show people. And pictures are one way to do that. I'm a picture guy. I like to be able to look at a dashboard, and instead of looking at columns and lists, I like to look at pictures. And there's so many ways you can illustrate this stuff now. One of the things we're doing, and this is becoming a lot more common, if you think, it's almost like the Google Map effect, if you think about it, or MapQuest, Yahoo. It's not just about getting from point A to point B. It's about figuring out where the nearest Pete's is. If you happen to be in Pennsylvania, you might be out of luck, but you want to basically understand how what you're trying to get to is related to what or where you are. Okay, so, and geospatial is one of those things where you can look at layers. Let's take a look at the ideal world. Let's take a look at and break down each of those layers, drilling down into levels of information. For a lot of our customers, and we deal with a number of different types of clients. So if we're looking at highways or Department of Transportation, looking at airports, looking at city government or water or utilities, a lot of the things that matter to them, in a nutshell, is often, location, understanding where things are and how that relates to one another, okay? So if you take a look at a high level, you can drill in and you can say, let's take a look at some of the hot spots. So these are like literally representations of projects, and using some heat maps that identify, a project that's going well, a project that's not going well, a new project that just came up that's impacting our highway system or our canal system or our utility lines. All of this stuff really allows you to illustrate and map out how that information is to be presented. Okay. Here's another example. Embedding it into a typical dashboard that shows different ways of illustrating this. I'm not sure what organization, Keith, do you know what organization is? DPSCS?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the organization, but looking at ways of identifying and finding fault in projects that are part of your world. Now, obviously, when I look at a map like this, some of the things that don't matter to me right away, if you're thinking about crisis management or reaction, is the green stuff. Maybe the green stuff doesn't matter to me, but the red does, or I might have some warning signs. And again, it's not just maps where you're illustrating this. A lot of times, it's looking at a pool of labor resources. Where you have allocation problems. We'll get to some of that in a little bit. All right. So here's a transport example, and this is, again, going back to that status report example. A lot of times, as the keynote speaker was talking about this morning, is, you're putting together a dashboard that illustrates all the right things, but you have no clue whether that information is correct or not. And so what we're finding is that, these dashboards, they're the way that you consume this information. Doesn't need to change, and nobody necessarily wants to change it. We want a portal where we can say, here's our project, here's the summary of what that project is designed to do. I might identify the funding sources, and I might have all this relevant, I'll use the term metadata to describe that project. And I might have some basic stop lighting. I might even have budget information if that's required. From a public perspective, if you take this and you want to display this into the public domain, like I was saying earlier, you might have a way of illustrating this, and then, here's the level at which we don't drill down any further because that's getting into the weeds, or that's just information I don't want to share. But the difference is that it's data-driven. You're looking at real information. You're not thinking now about a bunch of folks that are running around collecting this stuff and amalgamating this from different systems. It should be as simple as you're running a project, you update the project status, the milestones, progress. There might be a tie-in with budget or the amount of budget used to date. There might be, if necessary, an understanding of how we are consuming resources, these sorts of things. But you're not necessarily having to, come up with this information, run calculations manually, hope I didn't miss a decimal point in terms of putting that out there, because, the next thing you know, I'm on the front page of the Sacramento newspaper, and that's not good. So, thinking about it from that perspective, that's what we're driving to. Okay, and just sort of off topic in a sense here, but I definitely recognize a lot of this, and you might be thinking this already, is like, well, we don't even collect a lot of that information right now. I mean, it takes a lot to do that, and we haven't really done that. And maturity is definitely a factor. A lot of the information that you might get, I mean, I would say the first order is just to think about what it is you need to report on. Thinking about what really matters in terms of getting my projects all in the same place, using the same relative rank or metrics that we would identify or use to measure them. When you look at stop lighting, coming up with metrics and things that are similar and can transfer from project to project or department to department, so that when you're evaluating or putting up a dashboard like this, a red is pretty much a red in every project that we publish, or green or yellow or whatever the case may be. Okay, and so that maturity level can, definitely might start with projects and metadata or KPIs that are relatively basic, milestone dates, and notes that relate to what the project is doing, the various leads, the vendor, the PM, the program manager, risks and issues, but essentially trying to get this stuff in one location where you can generate, relatively confidently the information you need to publish. That was my little sidebar there, but I can imagine you thinking that, because every client is always saying, well, yeah, but we don't collect that. It does take effort, there's no doubt. And so again, you look at something like this, all the information that we display here, and the various charts and graphs by project type, different types of information that we want to publish essentially, and it might be an external view. So you're thinking about, I'm looking at all the same data, but what I need to be able to do is not show everything, but I want to publish it, and it's going to go to an open group. Anybody can see it. So what do I want them to see? Okay.
Are you being asked to do any of this, in the kind of goal of transparency, to try to share some of your information with the general public? Is that being asked in any case, or your management asking for help from you in order to do some of that? I see a few heads nod. That's exactly what this New York DOT situation, this is their external facing. This is for the public to go out and find information related to projects in their community. You'll notice on the GIS, the map, everything's green. They don't want the public to see red things, because then they're going to call and be like, what's going on? So they want shades of green as to how much money is being spent in their areas, because money's going into all the counties, just how much. Over on the left side is information.
Cat's out of the bag.
Over on the left is information that's not related to projects. It's how much money is being spent, and you probably can't read it in the back, in economically distressed areas. So we have projects that are going into popular, nice communities to the rougher areas, and they can see where the balance is between highways and bridge money going into those areas. In the yellow, it's also kind of highlighted or stamped on, how many jobs are being saved or how many are being created from this funding that's going forward. And that's something that the people, the citizens, are concerned about. And the governor felt we need to create more jobs. We need to create more jobs. We need to show where that's coming from. And this is one of the ways we're going to do that. So depending on what kind of information you want, it might be project, it might be jobs, it might be spend, lots of different ways, and you can have it all on one dashboard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the important thing Keith mentioned was, when you're looking at a lot of this type of information, and again, talking about metadata, traditionally schedule, resources, cost, but why are you doing the project? What's the strategic benefit of that project? Well, we're trying to increase, shovel-ready projects that can employ my constituents, or we want to show that we're reducing the wait times in a queue at DMV, or whatever the case may be. There's always a reason you're doing the project, and how do you correlate or measure the information that the project was designed to accomplish against the goals of that project? Sorry, question.
So you do have a front end to do the decision process then on Oracle's database, or some front end tool to do the decision making tool?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Cross asset allocation, if that thing.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's the vehicle to do it, right? And absolutely, we have that stuff. So being able to model what the strategic alignment is, what the measurement of the worth of a project or the benefit, and then there's what you bring is what are the measurement criteria? But absolutely. A couple of other examples. Well, actually, sorry. This is a drill down. So if we take what we had initially, like, okay, somebody sees their area, their shades of green. I guess we go to innocuous yellow here, very non-threatening color, and so you can drill into a smaller area, and then you'll actually see these little lines here, these line segments. You can actually track these little segments that relate to the projects that are being done. So if it's a highways project, then you can literally identify the mile marker or the bridge or what have you geographically as it relates to the way you're allocating funds. Okay. And again, you look at an external view of this stuff, and it will give you a completely different feel than from an internal view. So I'll kind of go through and show you some of these. Again, yeah. So what do I want to publish? High-level summary information, and that kind of thing.
The thing on this last one was you started at state, you went to county, and then you went to one project. I could see one project, and that one project actually went into multiple counties, but I can look on that map to see how much is in my county, how much of the spend was in mine versus another one. Or instead of counties, those can be congressional districts or assembly districts. So you might have different places, different people, congressmen coming up and saying, okay, I need this money in my place, and those battles can all be visible and seen here. So a little more transparency. You can control the level and the depth you want the drill down and the data to be.
Have you guys got a lot of demand from states asking to show this information to their constituents?
Yes.
And it's only going to get bigger.
It's only going to get bigger.
The cows are already out of the barn.
Yep. And a lot of people have dedicated resources that will take phone calls and to handle this. What's going on in my town? Yeah, I see where the state got several $1 billion. How much is going in my community? And that takes a long time and staff to do that, to take those calls. So the more they can actually push out to a website and say, go look at our website, they don't have to staff the people. They can actually have their people do other work instead of having to take phone calls. There's a better use of the resources than just figuring out reporting type information that they can find on their own. But it is a high demand thing across.
Yeah, and it's just going to get more and more. Every state's going to be, the governor's going to say, hey, we're going to publish this data, we're going to publish this data. We have open data, all these key buzzwords they like to throw out there.
Exactly.
People in this room are going to make that stuff happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
This ETL process of when you run that extract is also controlled by you. So you might say the information that's public is monthly. So it just comes on a random basis. You decide when the data's good, here's how much we've spent, while the information you're seeing internally is every few hours or daily, and you're getting more accurate information and you're making decisions on the fly, while the public is just, we're appeasing the governor and giving the information they need.
There seems to be a lot more agencies opening their data out to the public, pushing it out there so you can connect to it, pull it into your own personal warehouse if you're at home and you want to do some analytics. And I see that being a trend because, it's not just the folks in the office doing this analytics. Now we have the public, somebody who's interested in something, like I said, thinking outside the box. They have the data now to look at this and maybe come up with some really great proposals to make things better.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, I've seen, I'll be honest, we sometimes use that for examples, it's very easy, and it's great. I know it probably drives you guys nuts, because you get asked to put a lot of this information out in the public, and you're like, do we really want to share that? But, the reality is, with government these days, I don't think it's any secret to anybody that, there's a distrust out there, and one of the easiest ways to distill or to try to understand, what folks think are really going on is to publish and be transparent about a lot of the information, and it forces you to be accountable, and it's just a reality, and there's also a trend towards self-service. The reality is, when you look at budgets and you look at the attrition and these kinds of things that have impacted state governments, what we see a lot of is how do we provide a lot more self-sufficiency of our constituents without having to have them come into a physical office or make a phone call where we got to man phone banks. And so the web is a phenomenal vehicle to do that. And what sits behind that is the ability to use analytics to illustrate a lot of those kinds of things. And you can apply it to just about anything. It's not just projects. Here we're talking a little bit about PPM and the ways in which it's used for project delivery, but in reality, many of the analytics examples we have relate to any number of examples in public sector for analyzing information and displaying and showing things status. So the example that we just showed you from an external perspective is one level of information where you might keep it kind of high, provide the highlights. You're actually controlling what you can publish about those projects. But on the inside, you're looking at a lot of the information in a very, very different way. From a PMO, you might be thinking more about cost, where we are using EVM metrics. That's assuming it's a very large capital project, you might be thinking about cost variance that or schedule or duration, and looking at numbers and highlighting these things, using some of the same graphing and capabilities to drill down into problem areas, but focused on things in a very different way that obviously the public wouldn't necessarily be able to digest easily, but it's designed to show the project team exactly what's going on the ground, or the PMO. So drilling down into summary of budget, projects that are related to a specific area, putting different, it could be completely different information, completely different measurements, completely different metrics, but choosing to illustrate it in a different way for those folks that are internal to that project team. Okay? And a couple of other examples. We use the maps a lot. It's a great way to illustrate this stuff, and just in terms of how metadata about that project can be laid out in nice, pretty pictures like you see in Google dashboards or Yahoo or what have you. It's honestly, it's companies like that force us to up our game on UI and presentation, because that's how people expect to consume information. Don't make this difficult for me. I don't want to look at a green screen terminal when I want to pull up a report. I want something that's pretty. Give me something really pretty to look at. And so creating a way to just do a simple project lookup. looking up by neighborhood, so it'll group all the projects into a specific ward. So here's a city of Toronto that has put together a portal where folks can look at various projects that relate to infrastructure support. So you call in to get a pothole fixed, or you call in to report garbage in the street or a car burning on the side of the road or what have you. That might be a bit extreme. The police might be handling that one. But they show up, and as you can see, the city of Toronto has a lot of problems.
For all of you, if you remember know the mayor of Toronto, he kind of was in the news. This
explains a lot.
This is one of his things that he said he would tell. He's like, we're going to make all what we're doing transparent. And he drove the creation of this kind of site so people could go out and click on it. And you're like, on my street, what's happening? And it says like Monday through Thursday, there's going to be trench digging and a new pipe's going in. And
Yep.
and it's amazing how the people are very happy with getting this kind of information.
And so if you're wondering how he keeps getting elected, ironically, he is exceptionally responsive to his constituents, and that is exactly why, as nutty as he is, he keeps getting elected.
Because he doesn't sleep.
Yeah. I'm not going to comment on that one, but I guess you can all imagine why not, or how that's possible. All right, we've had our fun. Okay. So, looking at here's an example of analytics in action as well from the perspective of actually, looking at this information. So, very basically, you've got a chart and you've got a way of representing how you're looking at queue time. So to just set the stage, you're looking at wait times by the number of full-time employees that are being served in a queue. And so if we take a look at like one of the columns, go, wow, we got some months where we have some serious issues in employee staff. But what if we, click our little update total FTE count, and so what if we added a head count? What would that do to our queue time based on the number of customers we serve?
So hold on, before you go there. Sorry. So of those columns right before the red box, that's all the actual customers and the time waited, etc. This is for the Virginia DMV is what the customer is here. And the red box is actually what is predicted for the next month. So if you want to avoid that, what would you do is where he's going into.
Yeah, good ad. You just want to understand, okay, I see how it's trending, but I want to be able to make an update and see how that might impact customer service. And I know you're going to say, well, I can do that in Excel. You're right, you can do this kind of stuff in Excel. It's very easy. You just change a box, you add a head count. But what I'll say about the way we look at this information is this is data driven. A lot of this information, or I should say all of it, is information that can reflect reality, what is actually happening right now. Where Excel, it's, and not to knock it because I use it too. We all use it. But typically speaking, you're not giving it the same level of respect as a corporate or an organizational tool. It tends to be more of a scratch pad. And the skills with its ability to track and understand time series information is very, very low. It's really hard to do that. But with a database, you can actually do that, and especially with the way that you look at this kind of information and how it's designed. Okay. Another couple of user stories that we, wanted to bring up. Looking at the Georgia Department of Human Services. Okay, looking at how they manage the reporting in their Child and Family Services Department. I don't need to read the slide directly to you. We'll actually provide the slide so you can refer back to some of these things. But just a use story and how they're using BI to track information in their organization. Another one looking at the Department of Health and Human Services in New Hampshire. Okay. Looking at a number of the different programs, their effectiveness, and ultimately, I would say that the key driver is, not to do it just for the heck of it. It's either to drive down cost or to drive efficiencies, improve efficiencies, or to consolidate and understand and get everybody on the same page from a strategy perspective. Those are three very common ones. But at the end of the day, a lot of times it is definitely about cost, because why are you looking to reduce effort, or why are you looking to drive to strategy alignment? I mean, at the end of the day, you just need to figure out how to save money and be more efficient at what you do. And providing this information in a timely manner, accurately, leveraging actual data is how you can do it, you know? So that's Department of Health from New Hampshire. Any other questions or comments or ponderings, musings on any of this? Okay.
I think the real goal, one of the takeaways, is it's an endless opportunity. Where do you want this to go? Could your department improve sharing information internally, externally? Do you have, whether it's GIS or not, just having some drill down capabilities against dates, against deliverables, against issues? Those can all be things that this will help dissect and make it easy to transpire.
One of the challenges, I work for the state's GIS department, and in terms of sharing data, there's a lot of situations where each department thinks their data is, hang on a second, you can't have our data because it's special, or it needs to be, it can't be shared. So getting people not to silo their data sometimes can be a bit of a challenge.
Sure. There's definitely some process around that too. It's
Some
even
is valid, you know, I mean, Department of Corrections can't share certain information, and emergency services can't share certain information because of, you know, the locations of certain towers were made public. Certain people could get all of that information, so there's also a challenge of how to share it correctly and safely.
You bet. One other big element of this outside of Excel is the security that's around this. Who can click? You can try drilling into some, and if you don't have the authority, you're stopped. Where an executive can keep going, or a couple more clicks into information. So all of that can be managed as well, which is added power.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a balance between public transparency and likely a security or, you know, homeland security issue with, you know, exposing exactly where all the internet cables are that connect all the state, you know, data centers. You know, chances are you don't want to make that public. But it's all about roles, you know, thinking about, okay, let's classify this information and what are the roles that we want to define. So if we do publish something to state employees or to the general public or to the department or to a specific security clearance, all of that can be defined in how you share.
I think the biggest problem that I've probably ever come up with on all my projects is not giving BI to, that's not the problem, it's getting the information and even putting it in a pretty format, be it Excel, Word, whatever, standing up in front of them, standing on your head, spinning, breakdancing, whatever, is most of the time they want to know it only when they want to know it, not when you can provide it for them. So I provide my quarterly or monthly reports and I make it all pretty and I tell them the money we spent and how close we are on scope and schedule and all this wonderful stuff, and they don't care. And then out of the blue one day they're like, oh, I know you have it somewhere in SharePoint. Can you just give me a quick thing? So I feel like a lot of times, you know, when you're a project manager, you need the information every day because someone might walk up to you because they're too lazy to get on SharePoint or to get on whatever tool you happen to have, or even on the website to look it up themselves. You have to like literally know it off the top of your head on a daily basis because they'll walk up to you and be like, well, you're here. Why don't you just tell me? Why should I go log in? The public is different because the public's like, all right, let me go see what's out there. They'll go looking for any kind of conspiracy theory, right? But your executive staff, I find, generally just want to walk up to you and be like, tell me some stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on. Let's walk while I'm going to my next meeting, and while we're walking, you're telling.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. If this were, this is kind of how I see it, to counter that or to, you know, perhaps solve your problem. You know, in, I think it's the Harry Potter movies, you know, the moving photos on the walls, you know, how there's, and I think there's this one character that, you know, you could see his footsteps and he would be, you know, following you around and you could see them on the floor and you could see all these pictures moving and watching you. Well, the reality is, if you're thinking about things from a mobile perspective, you know, you're thinking about it's essentially rewritable ink. I mean, these are living, breathing documents. And you click a button, you're looking at the page. It's not a physical page, it's an electronic screen that illustrates exactly what's going on right now. It refreshes. You hit a button, it can tell you exactly what's going on right this very moment on that project, so they don't need to bug you about it. If you could provide the paper to do it, then you could essentially provide the vehicle that they could click that button and it would refresh on a tablet. I mean, I think for the most part, so much of that technology is working its way into the workforce within the next, I don't want to guess how many years, but I could see that very easily being where things are going. Now, what doesn't solve your problem is if it's not data-driven and you just happen to know how to get that info, I can only so much help you there. But I think the reality is it reinforces the point. If it's data-driven, then you should be able to mitigate that kind of stuff so you don't get bugged on the spur of the moment for that information. They should be able to just like they can pick up a newspaper, they should be able to just click a button and it's right there on a screen.
Yeah, that's a common thing that's been happening is you can get an email or schedule one to be sent at a certain time that has a link so that executive gets it. Maybe they're on the light rail, they're on their phone, they hit that link, and suddenly it opens up that dashboard, and then they can see what's going on.
She's not
Or-
happy with that answer.
I'm telling you, I have done, like I said, short of breakdancing, because I'm not that skilled.
This
I've done
can-
the links, I've written it out, I've done all that. It's getting people who are accustomed to being catered to in a specific way, are not accustomed to going and seeking out information.
Sure.
Even if you send them a link and you say, here's the meeting notice with the phone, like literally teleconference, let me set it up for you and let me come to your office and set up the teleconference.
There's been some customers, what they've been doing is using like flat screen monitors, like in the office or wherever they're working, which has that dashboard information up there all the time. All they have to do is turn their head and look at it. So
I know that.
hopefully that doesn't involve breakdancing. But
And he doesn't have a neck brace.
Are these tools, I know, right? Are these tools compatible as applications so you can have them on your iPads and that?
Yeah, exactly. So, as I think one of the screenshots I showed you was it's available. Any iPhones, iPads.
Yeah.
There's even this is talking about very product-specific technology, but we have this concept of a briefing book. And again, it's a living, breathing, potentially disconnected book that can be, refreshed. So if he knows how to click a link on his desktop, he can keep always clicking the same link, but the information that is contained in that briefing book, or even a PowerPoint, can be refreshed in the background and pull in the latest status. So he's clicking the same link, all you gotta do is say, okay, I told you, bottom right, you don't have any other icons within 3 feet of that one icon. Just click that icon and you can stop bugging me because you'll have more time and information than it takes for me to walk over here and click that link for you. But I totally understand what you're saying. I think for some, there's just no helping them. It's gonna be clicking the link, printing it out, and putting it in their hand. And that's not gonna go away, but that could be done too.
We as IT have become the ultimate spoon feeders.
Yeah, I agree.
We kind of created this monster on our own, so everyone wants to see data differently.
Well, there was a point where it was job protection. I think we're long past that. Now it's not job protection. It's kind of like, how do I take 400 pounds of something off my back so that I can carry a reasonable load? And self-service is one of the ways that we're looking to do that.
What's been the biggest challenge with agencies across the U.S., state agencies, as far as presenting this information to the public? What have you guys found?
Well, I don't know, Keith, do you have any comment on that?
It's deciding what to share. People have different information. The governor thinks one thing should happen, or some of the district heads want to share different information. Others don't. But talking to legal, finding out what's reasonable, and how quickly that information is going to come out. Because what they don't want is to find violations of information and the conspiracy theory. People to dig and find things that are erroneous or something that's going down a bad path. So making sure the data is accurate and the type of data takes some time to actually get the sign-offs to do that kind of information. That usually is the longest process.
And, you know, sorry.
I was just gonna say, isn't there already kind of defined what's public information and what
But
should-
that doesn't mean they have to put it on their website.
I didn't say they have to,
That's
but
the,
I'm
co-
saying if-
yeah.
if
Do you want to make it
Th-
easy, or do you just have to provide it if it's requested? You know,
Because that's a great point. So the legal team will say, you can put all this stuff out, but then they're saying, well, I don't want to, because there is some dirty laundry in there. Instead, I just want this clean, good information. Everyone will love me. I'm the head of the DOT, and this is all I want. So kind of finding where that line is drawn takes a little bit of time.
you know, and I would say that there's also contention at times between elected officials and government employees, you know, where elected officials might come in on a mandate to full transparency. We're going to make everything public, you know, and then the you know, city or local government are saying, sure, you want to do that. Let me brief you. We got to be careful what we share, okay, because it could create more problems than it's worth. And you know, and I'm not saying this to hide things. It's just simply people can misinterpret things so easily.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, you're doing damage control. And the same thing can be said for private. It's nothing to do with public sector. I think it's always about what is good to share and what is not good to share. But being able to create or develop the information and provide it as needed. Anything else?
Yeah, one of the ways I've seen other cities do it is they actually share it internally for a couple weeks, and then everyone internally can see the information, and if they see something that's wrong, they can raise a flag or kick off a workflow or an email before it actually then goes out to the public. So it's getting some sort of view by internal people than just, okay, it's Friday, last day of the month, out to the website. So that different ways of handling different concerns.